Welcome, everyone, to the Infinite Star Connections. I am your host, Viviane Chauvet. As you can see here, my dear friend Jeff Demers is not with us today. He is very unwell and he wanted to be here in spite of everything. And I told him, please get some rest. We're with you. We're sending you healing prayers, healing light in waves. So, Peter Benson, my husband, is going to come in and join us to welcome our most amazing guest. We are so privileged today to have Zaysan back with us. Allow me to introduce him, even though his presence speaks for himself. Zaysan is what I personally call a Superman of modern time, and that's my way of recognizing you, Zaysan. I'm calling you a Superman of modern time. Um, Zizan has multiple college degree. He's also known as Z, and I know if Jeff were here, he would call you Z for sure. Zizan has directed a worldwide television show called the UFO AZ. He has been employed as a bounty hunter, military contractor, and many more functions in between, working at sea and around the world. And the story and the work that you do and with your team is beyond words. As the founder and the recipient of many awards for his charity, the Quest ECSS to ending slavery, Zaysan is known for standing up for those who have no voice. Plus, in addition to that, Zaysan also have a lot of experience in direct interaction with an advanced civilization called the Plejarens. And we're going to review today the new book that just came out. I'm really excited. I was so looking forward to have this in-depth conversation with you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, blessings to you for letting me talk on here.
Oh, absolutely. Every time you come, and I know it's just in my personal experience, it's really a ray of hope, a ray of light, and working with the children, and plus, in addition to that, having so much in-depth intergalactic connections with this beautiful group. Let's dive here, if you don't mind. Let's talk about your new book. Well,
Yeah, it should be out within the next couple of weeks. I just finished. It's the eighth book I've written in less than 2 years, and which I can't even believe myself. But there's just so much information, and it's kind of weird how this all started and how the influence of them has changed me in such a large degree. And the way we called it in the beginning was you become more as you start to learn the pathways that they work on. And it wasn't until just recently that there's so much like us, and it was like kind of baffling to me, because how much they were like us. And I knew that they are so far superior in so many different ways, right? And yet they consider us equals. They consider everybody as equals. But in that process, I've started to learn through certain things that's happened recently how superior they are. And it's like it's just mind blowing because so much of what's taking place now is so far beyond the words. I it's difficult in a lot of ways to describe it. So what I do is I just tell exactly what I'm feeling as I'm feeling it, as whatever it is that is happening at the time. And one thing that hasn't changed is the love. The love is the key to everything that they do, and that it's not our next step in evolution is actually finding the love. So anyways, that's the premise of it.
that is amazing you say that, Cezanne, because I have a dear friend, David Wallace. He's an ambassador for the Taurus constellation, and he's going to come in April to talk about kimchi. And one of the key factor he mentioned as well was all about the love. It's really want to go back to oneness. We want to achieve alignment. We want to be in unity with each other. But love is really much a premise. So I love that you say that. I love that you say that because you can tell, David's group and versus your group seems to be distinctly different and separate in time and space. But they're all interconnected because the message is very similar. So based on the previous interaction you have with them, the Plejarens, and I know that on Amazon you have the Plejarens Diary series available right now. So right now it's on the screen, everyone. Make sure you go to Amazon and find this amazing series of diaries, and those based directly on your experience, correct?
Yeah. Not if anybody else's, it's purely my experience. So
Phenomenal. So what is the next energy or the next level of interaction and experience with a new book coming up?
well, I mean, there's so much information. That's the thing. That's why it's been so easy to write all these books. And I never intended to be writing it to the public. So, but it just sort of took off, and people wanted more, and I was enjoying it. And the messages that they teach me, the lessons, are really important, I believe, and it's helped me in so many ways. One of the things that happened was that they described to me about how we have a separated hemisphere and the reasons for that. And not only love, but natural law is what I call it. I tried to look up, because I wanted to put that as part of the title of this 8th book. And I tried to look it up, and it really doesn't define it. There's in a dictionary and stuff, it shows the science one and then the nature one. It doesn't show what natural law truly is. And that's how the different species seem to get along, because when you find that natural law, it's the one theme, right? It's the one pathway. It's the one without resistance, and it's love. And, it's easy to say that, but to go into the definition of it, there's multiple layers. One of those things is like when you have this blended hemisphere, you think not only with logic, but you also think with emotion. And it happens at the exact same time, rather than how we break that apart. And there was a point where we came to, I don't, there's so much information, that's why I say, so I might be skipping around a little bit, but you'll get the point. Me and Sam Jess, they wanted for us to swap bodies. And, and I was kind of hesitant at first and everything, but it would give me a better idea of who they are, and vice versa. And when we did this, and again, it had to have the connection of love. And once we did it, it was really rather confusing for me, but it was enlightening at the same time, because what I started to realize is, at first the physical parts, trying to step off the table and still be able to stand, because they're lighter than us, and they have the ability to become lighter or heavier, and to manage their balance, I guess is what you would call it, or in different gravities. And so that was a little awkward at first. And then to be able to be speaking to them, I suddenly realized that she had implanted in there something for me to recognize, to help me with this transference, or whatever you want to call it. And that was, I saw 3 different difficult mathematical equations being resolved at the same time while I'm having conversations with each of the family. And it was like, I got it, because they come from the mind. The mind is a reaction, where the brain is a process of thoughts. And when we have to think, it delays the process. And we can only think, or and the dangerous part is we have to assume, because we don't have all the answers to fill in the gaps of what we're witnessing or seeing. And so therefore we can take the wrong direction multiple times, until we finally come to the right path, where in relation to them, it is instantaneous, because they're reacting, because they have references to the things, whatever is being presented to them. And I like to use the old, I don't know if it's true or not, but it was told a long time ago about how the Indians were standing on shore, and these ships were coming in, and they did not see the ships because they had no reference to it. And that's similar to what the experience that I'm having when we swap bodies, is I didn't have a reference to certain things. And so I have to be using the brain at most of the time. And when in reality, all we need is our mind. So anyways, that's just a short piece of what it is.
That's incredible. We're going to dive more into it, but everyone, I want to welcome to the podcast. This is Peter Benson, my husband, and Peter, this is our most phenomenal guest, Zaysan. It is always an honor to have you on the podcast, obviously, Zaysan. But Peter going to be for today my co-host, since Jeff needs to rest and heal, my friend. And he was back in the studio before we went live, and we went like, "Oh no, you're going back to bed and get rest and get the care that you need." So we love you, Jeff. We hold you, sending you healing prayers. Get well soon. And Peter, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, hon. Welcome, Cesar. Cesar, how you doing today?
Great.
So now that we are all together, I just from some back reference, would you please, Zaysan, remind us of who the Plejarens are and where they're from originally?
It's like 80 some light years beyond the Pleiades. And they're about 5,000 years more advanced than us. They're primarily tall, a lot taller than us, but they look like us in so many ways, most every way, except for the eyes. The eyes are a lot larger. And like when I bring them here, especially like Sam Jess and stuff, she has to wear like glasses in a sense that diffuse so people don't see the eyes. But she's a little shorter than I am, which is unusual. But for the most part, they're about a foot taller than me, and I'm 6'2". So.
Oh wow, you're 6'2"?
Yeah.
And so they're well above 7 feet tall then.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. Wow, that's wonderful.
So it's really awkward for me when I first met them and we introduced the hugging because, it's like hugging a bear. I mean, they're so much larger than us. And being as tall as I am, I've always been large, tall. And, when I hug people, it's like I'm leaning downward. So now I'm going up.
Wow. Feel the energy already. So just for by perspective, 7 feet tall and more, well, we are on average at least 12 feet tall, if not even more than that. I mean, my Octarian group. So I know the feeling when I go on the ship, they call me the little light because I look minuscule compared to them. But here in this female human form, I'm 5'9", just about. I'm still considered tall, but nothing compared to our beautiful intergalactic group. So thank you for bringing that sparkle. I want to go back to something I'm very curious about. I think it would be interesting to explore that. And among so many things we're going to explore, you talk about their ability to be lighter and denser. So they can really, from what I understand, shift either their vibrational state and the frequency they can coexist at once. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was the first I noticed this was when I first met her, when she was tangled up in the mangroves, and I had to carry her back to a place where she could be taken to safety. And when I prepared to lift her, she's like nose high or whatever that would be, and so you kind of assume the weight. It's over 100 pounds, right? And so when I went to pick her up, I kind of had that in mind, and I almost threw her over my head because she was so light. She had made herself lighter to allow me to be able to carry her. So yeah, everything is based off of frequency, just like travel, I guess, is one of the biggest things that people have, and they're so confused with. There's so many things that our scientists just haven't figured out yet, and it takes them down a wrong path. But just like how they travel, a lot of people want to know this. So I guess I'll just bring it up. Frequency meaning, everything has a unique frequency, absolutely unique frequency. So when they travel, it's not like they go from here to there. It's like they step into another room. What they do is, like on the ship, for example, using one of the basic general explanations is, okay, they want to go to this part of space, right? And so they can calculate every frequency that's within that space. And so what happens is, in just a moment, they're able to change their frequency to that frequency, and they become that space. So they don't have to fly or move or go into a wormhole or anything like that. They just become that next space. Just like when they pick me up from here, wherever I may be, and they want me to come to the ship, that's what's happening there. is they take my frequency and duplicate it exactly at the point they want me to enter into the ship, and then I'm there. So
Exactly, because what they do is, like you mentioned, they have the ability to already foresee or calculate the different level of frequency variation and adapt to that frequency. So in reality, they enter that realm without having to navigate or project themselves. It's more like an adjustment of the frequencies.
and it's almost like a projection of their frequency, because they can tell, like, that moment in which they move from one place to another, something could enter into that frequency range or that place that they were going, which would be a catastrophe. Well, the way they can see it into the future, in a sense. It's just a momentary future, but it's just ahead of when they're going to be there. So
That's fascinating because if you look on a 3D example, it's like, it reminds me of a tower, what is the word, flight tower or airport. Well, they're monitoring the airspace to make sure that there's no two planes are coexisting in the same space or too close proximity to each other to prevent colliding or preventing, a distortion or instrumental failure and all of it. So because they have the ability to project themselves and to look at the different probability, even in what we call a future timeline, they're able to readjust not only that frequency, but also to know that their trajectory will be clear. Did I understand that correctly?
yeah, and it's instant. So they're not moving, but they're assuming that space, right?
Yes.
And so so they know that space prior to and just after. So they become whatever it is in the moment that they are going to be there, because they can calculate how long it's going to take them to change frequencies, which, to us is nothing. It's just an instant, but in relative to that movement, it's an eternity in a sense.
Good point, because I'm sure that the perception of time would be completely different. So what is this perception of time? How do they, not calculate or live time for them? What's their perspective?
Well, time's just an illusion anyway. And I think, like I explained the last time, how we're not here really, we're a projection. We never leave consciousness, and we are, each of one of us is a fragment or an essence of that, the puzzle board up in space, which is what I call consciousness. And see, there's one of the little things that is difficult for science to grasp, is that the reason they haven't been able to figure out, quantum so well is because consciousness is actually living. And that's what changes everything, and each one of us is a part of that consciousness. So
Yes, that's true. We're coexisting in a consciousness together. Yes.
yeah.
Incredible. Well, go ahead, please.
One of the things I wanted to bring up before I got is that, like, when I process these certain things, there's so much that I don't know, right? And so I don't have a reference to. And so I also know that I'm going to, what do you call, corrupt that thought pattern if I try to ask questions and try to figure things out before I have a reference. So what I do, what I call digest, as they've presented something to me, and so I just let it digest for a little while, and then out of the blue, things will pop up that will give me a reference, which will allow me to question certain things. And so, just like this last thing, I mean, they just keep piling more and more on me, which is really funny, but in a sense, because I'm learning to become the things that they understand. And so this thing with the mind, I had this experience where the one they call Mother, she's like the Dalai Lama or whatever, she suggested that me and Sam, since we're the same person, that we become one mind and see what that is like. And so we did this process, which we do normally through this. I've explained in the book several times, but when we entered them, I'll skip through most of that. Well, it's maybe not. It's kind of important. There's a process in which that we do where we sit across from each other, and it's kind of something that takes over from us. We initiate, and then it becomes it. And there's a significance or symbolism to each of the processes that happens between us. And that is, like, first our knees will touch, and then this is when it starts whatever it is takes control of us. Our foreheads will come together, our nose touch, then our lips touch. And each one of those things has a specific meaning to it. And so we go into this process and where we break up a little bit, where just our foreheads are touching and we're gazing into each other's eyes. And it was like a snap. And we were in one mind. And in that one mind, I started to realize, you know, the words, all possibilities, all probabilities, and, you know, everything is infinite, because within there, I had been trying to figure out planes of existence, right? And in my mind for years, what I saw as planes of existence was like, we have several lives, right? You know, no matter how you label it, you know, either past lives, current lives, or other lives, all going on at the same time, which are actually just projections, right? But that's only one single tiny plane of existence, where when we are working, or when they are working on certain things, or in us too, there's ethereal, there's parallel, there's a light body, there's all these other ones that are taking place of planes of existence. So we have multiple planes of existence that we exist on at all times. Also, each one of those planes of existence has multiple dimensions, which is aspects of ourselves, which would be what we would consider like a past life or something. So when we look at the world and seeing, you know, our past life or our Akashic record, and we only see the physical lives, that is only just, that's a little tiny speck in the universe of who we really are. Then I was talking to one of the, she's like Mary Ann on Gilligan's Island. She's with Laura. Everybody loves this lady. And I was hanging out with her, and I do this annoying thing with her. It's kind of fun because like when she's working or something, I'll go sit by her and I keep scudging over to her, you know, and keep bumping her until she pays attention to me. And so she was in her rest time, because they take like 20 minutes, I think, in like what we would call a 24-hour period, where they just, what you would assume to be meditation, but in reality is they're just releasing themselves or their consciousness, and that, you know, gives them their rest. But in that process, the way she explained to me was that, like, for instance, you know, some people have told me that are close to me that they've had an experience. They saw me or Sam Jess, or they saw Hans or one of the other people, and they had this interaction with them. And before I grew into what I know now, you know, I saw that as an aspect, you know, like maybe in the mind, it may be physical, maybe one of these particular things that is what is accustomed to their soul. But in reality, what it is that they are having conversations on multiple planes of existence in multiple dimensions, and they are conscious of some things, but they're not always conscious of other things. Some of them that they will remember, and some that they won't, because there are so many of them. And it reminds me of this one time when Sam Jess was explaining to me the sensing thing. And the sensing thing is the key to accessing all this, which I'll just go over real quickly, is like you feel a warm ball going through your body over and over again. And then at that same time, you start to recall a memory of yours that means to you of unconditional love, meaning more than anything of pure unconditional love. And you repeat that over and over again until it becomes real, and you don't know that you're thinking of a memory. And that's when the doors to the gates open, right? But anyway, like, so, you know, Sam just homerizes a lot of things for me, because, you know, I use the word homerization. But anyway, so making it simple. So she says, like in sensing, when you're trying to contact somebody, she goes, like, say that she was in her room and that this guy named Mike was with her, and she had lost her keys while he was there, and she didn't recognize it until after he had left. But now he's a million miles away. And so in order to contact him, she goes through the sensing. Now, when she contacts him, you know, she finds his frequency where that resonates within her after meeting him. So now she can talk or find that frequency to ask him the question if he knew where her keys were. Well, he doesn't have to be conscious that she is asking him where her keys are, but if he would do it when they were face to face, then she will receive the message from him. And then again, he may or may not be conscious of her, even of ask him of where the keys were. So it sounds a little complicated, but it's really not. It's, you know, pretty simplistic. Anyway, what happened when we merged into one another's mind, and all these things showed up. So now I'm in digestion mode.
Is that what just happened recently?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I I felt it when you said that, that you are digesting, integrating. So I love what you just shared because it really redefined limitation of space, time, physicality, and all of it. Any thought or comments or question, Peter, you'd like to add?
No, I love the story and the understandings of it and what do you want to call it? The techniques and how the connections work. It's really interesting.
I can tell you about an event that happened recently, and basically Sam Jess became queen, or acknowledged as the queen, and of this large realm. So she kind of took or followed the footsteps of her mother, reluctantly, but she did. And right after that, there was, there's a whole story behind it, but all the people of the realm wanted to gather, and because she made a decision that was different than had been traditional. And so anyways, they wanted to meet, and where all these species would come and gather. And I thought, wow, that would really be cool, and I had no idea what I was in for, because all these species within the realm, which are hundreds of thousands, and so they come to meet, right? And how it happened is, like, I didn't understand how it was going to take place, but basically Hans, he's more of the scientific sort of guy. He was kind of explaining to me, some of the little things that would be happening, that they would bring with them, like a little mini Disneyland in each of them, where people could visit each other's places and understand who they were, what they do, and who they were really, because not all of them have continual contact. So it was kind of like just a big party gathering, right? And then there would be speeches and all that. So anyways, we're on our way, and we stop at this place that I had been to before. It was this massive ship that I never have been able to see the ends of, because it's so large, and the ship that we're in is very large, and we fit inside of it. And they had to make some modifications, and I'm asking the captain, so what's going on? He goes, because we will all be linked together in this meeting. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool, but I didn't quite understand it, because they can manipulate the outsides of the ship, which they showed me before, where they gave me 3 different pieces of metal while I'm out in space, and they asked me to touch them, and they fused together, and they became one metal. And so they can formulate in space without any machinery or anything. They can create metal to be any shape or size that they want. So anyways, that was kind of what was going on in preparation. And then once we got there, I was just like overwhelmed, because what was taking place was they were all fitting in together like pieces of puzzle. And it was a saucer, and it was 2,000 miles is what Hans told me, across in diameter. And I'm just like blown away. And then, so I'm just getting overwhelmed by what I'm witnessing. And then there was this where we get to go travel, to the other people's places and get to see what they are. And there was one place we were going to go. We already knew the people we were going to go see. And it reminded me of Mork from Ork. They had the little egg-like type thing. And what you would do is you would get in it, and it was pre-programmed. You just touch this thing where it showed you where you was going, and it would take you there, right? And so you weren't really in control of it. You were just giving it the direction to go, or who to go see. And so anyways, I'm in this little thing, and it pops up, and the Laura had told me, or Snakely, I forget which one it was, it told me that I could pause this at any time, right, in the process, and it would move me out of the way, and I could just look. And because I wanted to see this, I mean, it was like I couldn't see the whole thing. It was so massive, And so anyways, I pop out, and I'm going up, and I stop it, because what I'm looking at, I can't quite understand what I'm seeing. This massive disc, that I can't even see the whole thing. And it's below me, and I'm seeing all these other things moving around. I'm looking up, and I can see a lot of space. And in the area that we were, stars were visible and stuff. So I'm trying to figure out if this is real or not, kind of like pinching myself and stuff. And I started to get anxiety, and I'm thinking, I can't just step out of this. I can't just get into another room and get back to familiarity. I'm in space now. I'm in the middle of this massive thing that is overwhelming to me. But I got over it, of course, because of all the fun things there was to do. But I had to take a moment at that point just to try to understand what I was looking at. But yeah, and then there was a couple things. There's this one species that I really like. I call them Navi. I kind of named the species because there's no way I could speak
Yeah.
what they speak. And they kind of I called it Navi because it represents it. They're similar to like those Avatar, the movie Avatar.
The movie, the blue call
Yeah,
being with the
except
tail.
they're not really blue, but their faces are shaped real similar and
Okay.
such. And one of the things that they're good at is communication. And so it was really cool when we went to her ship. And she also taught me, like, I'm allergic to language, but she taught me how to understand languages being spoken. And I was able to, she said a phrase and I was able to understand what she was saying, which was really cool and unusual for me. But anyways, because it has to do, all language has to do with specific tones and how they tie to the different frequencies that's emanating from the sound, right? And our thoughts. So anyway, we got, one of the things that they're best at is they're very advanced in comparison to like the Plejarens, but they're not the most advanced, of course, but they, communication is their thing. So she had this thing where, which is what they kind of show people when they would come to visit, like I said, the little mini Disneylands on each ship. And she put me in this great big like round machine. It was almost like a steel tire, right? And I'm sitting on it. And then she brings up in front of me all this visual stuff. Like I call it a screen. I lack the knowledge to use what I'm describing, but it was like out of thin air, a computer screen or whatever. And she shows me all these different species, and she says what she would like me to do is choose a species that's on here, and I would become that being, and then I could choose the person I would have a conversation with and pick that species. Well, of course, they didn't have any Earth people, and one of the first peoples that I met, which were, I call them grays, but and there's no definition of gray. If you try to look up one, but these were very tall. They had the look that you would imagine like a gray with the big eyes and all. Yeah, and they were considered like very ancient, and so one of the oldest species in the universe. And they have emotion, but I found it very difficult in communicating with them because of that lack. And there was like pauses, and they like me and I like them, but I would get bored when we had a second meeting. I was rather bored because there's just no way to communicate with them. And that's why they turn things over to like the Plejarens and other people to do the contact work. And so anyway, I wanted to feel or know what it was like to be them, so that maybe the next time when I came in contact with them, I would have a better understanding of what they were communicating to me with. And so I chose that to be the gray, right? And then I chose a Plejaren as the other one that I would be communicating with, because to me, they are so similar to us in so many ways. And so it would be more like me, right? And so anyways, it was activated, and it's like a pre-programmed, I guess, for lack of words, conversation, but of construction, but it can be changed. In other words, sharing of technologies or whatever. And so when I did this, I could feel how my entire body was responding to the person, the Plejaren that I was speaking with. And I could hear and I could feel the joy in their voice, and I could feel it from inside. But expressing it wasn't part of what I was doing. I guess I was, in a sense, but not in a way that's recognizable, And so anyways, just to make a long story short, it was just a very beautiful experience. And I'm still looking forward to seeing one of those grays again, so I may understand the conversation more.
Okay, we're gonna dive into this because you have me. And one thing and my husband knows, we talk about different ET species and craft and frequency dimension. You have me. I'm right there with my cup of tea. Like, let's go. Let's do this. Right, babe?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Oh yeah, okay. Let's dive into this.
Oh yeah, let's dive into this. So I know the energy is so high. I feel like I'm burning
Yeah.
like there's a big sun coming right behind. I
Yeah.
regret having a vest on, but it's okay. Um, I wanna go back for a moment. There's many segments I would like to explore with you. That's okay.
Yeah.
Zaysan, thank you so much for this. This is phenomenal. What a treat, everyone. I mean, we have a stellar guest today, so what a treat. These beautiful, tall, very ancient gray, are they part of what we call the Zeta group, or are they the founders or the forefathers of?
You see, I don't really have a vocabulary for that.
Okay,
What I know is like they're like considered the creators,
okay,
but they're not actually the creators. But that there is the closest people can come, or species can come to the creator.
okay. You just answered my question. I felt it. Did you feel that, Peter, too?
Yeah, no, that sounded good. I'm trying to find some pictures here of the Plejarien, because it's like when you said that, you know, the species and the way they looked, the first thing that came to mind, and it's just been bothering me since you said that when I first jumped in, is just like, if you've ever seen the new Star Trek, the Kelvin timeline Star Trek, right after they meet the Romulan mining ship, and Kirk's father actually takes a ship, but his wife is actually in a shuttle giving birth. The nurse right there is exactly how you describe it.
Huh?
Very large eyes, regular body, looks like a human. And I'm like, that just stuck in my head. And I'm like, I got goosebumps over it. I'm trying to find pictures.
Yeah, and I got that image too, and they're beautiful. I know what you're referring to. That image of that just bigger eyes, but beautiful and very mesmerizing. And thank you for that. Oh, by the way, says I don't know if you know about my husband, but Peter communicate a lot with what I call the angelic realm. A lot of beautiful angelic beings, a lot of very powerful archangels, and other angelic being that he's in communication with. So I think like it's a beautiful energy here today with angelic presence, and with intergalactic, and I would say even beyond that, it's universal. But I just found the synergy between all of us really beautiful. I just want to mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something's going on because I'm drenched.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you. I feel like I'm in a sauna, so we're good. This is a good sign, everyone.
Yeah.
This is a good sign. So these beautiful tall gray, I've heard of them, and right away, just so you know, right away when you talk about communicating with them, it found difficult because there was no emotion. If I understand correctly, there was no emotion as we recognize it here under human emotion, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very dry, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, from a human perspective, it will be perceived as dry. I can see that. I appreciate. Yes.
Yeah.
See, from a nocturne perspective, I understand that to a T. I know what it means. It's like it's a whole different level of communication, and so I'm with you 100%. And when you were talking about them, they came. I saw three of them coming in my holographic field. Like they want me to see what you were talking about. So I felt that. So with this machine, you were able to embody an aspect of themselves. How was it for you physically or energetically to be an embodiment of being this very ancient race, like a gray?
It was so quick because there was so much happening. You know, it was like when like there's so many stories I can tell you about, but when I was overwhelmed, right, by the feeling that was encompassing me, and I recognized the feeling. I didn't necessarily understand it, but I knew it was love, and I was seeing the conversation before the Plejaren spoke it, and I already knew how I was to answer it. So it was like it's already happened. Is the way that these beings are like they already sat down to have this conversation. They already know what the conversation is, what's going to be said, and how it's going to end. But they are almost like humoring us it gives them the opportunity to experience the love and the emotion and all that's coming from this Plejarien that was explaining to me the transfer of the technologies or whatever, which was insignificant, but it gave the purpose for me to be able to experience everything that, you know, I need to know about these people. And so, yeah, I'm feeling, you know, tingling. I'm feeling sensations. I'm feeling, you know, where like I'm categorizing my responses, waiting for her to voice hers in order to respond back to her. And then when she laughs and stuff, I could feel an immediate response of emotion within me, but there was no expression of that emotion. And so, see, that was where I was missing it when I would use my little, I always use humor or sarcasm, you know, when I'm dealing with people. And, you know, I kind of upset Sam Jess a lot of times. She'll hit me and stuff because I just want to be happy, right? And I didn't know how they were taking it, but I know now that they enjoyed it, because the next time they came to visit, they brought along a little one with them. And so, and then when I got bored of the conversation, they said, "Oh, good, well, you can take the kid with you," you know? And I'm thinking, well, that's not going to work either, you know? But then I went and found the rest of the family and we were all entertained. But anyway, yeah.
Now, it makes me smile because you have to think that for me it's the opposite around. Is I am this intergalactic being in this human form, so I understand more this interaction or different level of ambassadorial connection with a multitude of species, and how we're able to what we call a more of a holographic soul essence exchange that conveys. It's like we're shifting side and we can convey and understand everything there is to understand about each other. So I am with you so much. And for me, it's the opposite. It's adapting to human emotions, you know, fluctuations, the complication of, you know, subtleties of expression or humor. And I learn a lot with my husband. He's rubbing off of me for the humor. He's training me. So it's, you know, I'm like in wonderland with you right now, because I'm like, oh, finally we're back in that universal space, and it's amazing. So I want to honor our audience today. Thank you so much for joining us. We have people from all over the world. We're always there with us for the podcast. We have some questions. If it's okay, Zaysan, I'd like to honor some of the questions.
Sure.
And being able to continue. And of course, Peter, you can help me with some of the questions in the chat room. So I'll start with Holly. She asked earlier when you were talking about conscious exchange, you know, when you're still integrating that conscious exchange, and then can be described as remote viewing?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Not even close.
Okay.
You know, remote viewing is a physical act, and it's using sensory and everything else. So I'm not dismissing it. What I'm saying is it's limited in comparison to the exchange of consciousness that I'm talking about.
And we got that in spade. I just want to honor this beautiful question. It's a great question, and it helps to bring perspective. Because remote viewing versus this exchange of consciousness is completely two different spheres.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, remote viewing is like a piece of what do you call it? Of sensing, in a sense. You know, it's funny. And I knew Vance Davis. I don't know if you know that name, but he was part of the Gulf Breeze Six, the original group of the people that started remote viewing, and he was one of the originals. And they went AWOL after what they saw and what they were doing, because their remote viewing went from sensory to consciousness. And they feared it because of the control that others would have on their abilities. And so, and the funniest thing is about it is he wrote a book called Unbroken Promises, where they were all discharged after they went after him. You know, they were top level security clearance at NSA, and so the penalty for that would be treason, and which would be hanging. And they were taken to I think Leavenworth or whatever, and the end result was they were all discharged with okay things, because they went beyond that, and people feared them actually because of who they became. And it all started with, the remote viewing or the Gateway Project.
Interesting. Thank you for bringing that piece. And so very different, but great question, Ollie. Thank you for asking. Peter, would you like to read Central Verde Vida question for Zaysan?
Yes, Central Verde asks, are your books being translated in other languages like Spanish, Portuguese, or German?
Not yet. It seems to be a very complicated process, and there's a lot of thievery and everything else that go on with it. And then people want me to pay for the translations and all this, and all the money that comes in from this goes to my charity, my Quest, that saves these kids. And you don't make any real money on books, I guess, unless you're really, really popular or something, And so to put out even $1,000 I wouldn't make any money, and that would my kids wouldn't get the results of that. So I'm comfortable with this. If somebody wants to come in and take over that process, they're welcome to. So.
Okay.
Well, that was another great question. Go ahead, Peter.
Savi Jam is asking, or says, wow, you speak many languages, do you?
No.
Do you speak many languages, do you? That's good.
I say I'm allergic to language. I mean, I spent years in China, in the temples and studying and stuff, and I never was able to master any language. And there's so low. I just got back from Thailand. I spent 2 months in there. I know 2 words or 1.5, and I try, but it's like, there's no way I can communicate very well, no matter where I've ever been in the world. And I've been in 70 countries, and I can always communicate. I just can't speak the language. I don't know what it is.
Well, maybe it's a matter of frequency. I think we have one more question. Zaysan? By Diana, the last one.
Yeah, Diana just asked, do they have symbols or codes that house templates of information?
That's a very general question, but in essence, I don't know if I talked about this the last time, but when we went to like the Vulcan planet, it's more of a water world. And when we went down, we had this experience with this being, happened to be like a dolphin, but it voiced out noise, right? And we saw it, and I forget the name of what they call that, where sound creates images and symbols. And that's a signature in a sense. And it can explain, like some of you'll see the aliens, they'll have a symbol on the side of their ship or multiple symbols. And those are what those sounds of their name is, in synetics, I think is what they call it. And so also I realized that when being in the temples, I see these ancient symbols from the Buddhism and the different sects of monks. And I saw symbols, and they would tell me what they represented. But I found out that these were actually synetic sounds, and that even the old monks didn't realize what these symbols actually meant. So if you're talking about, I think that's the best way I can answer that question is, yes, sound does leave a frequency image, and those can be translated into language.
Oh, absolutely. Can it be considered like a different form of geometric pattern that the sound creates in form of symbol, and that symbol carry that corresponding frequency, and then that can be translating, like you said, a language or structure of linguistic language coming through. Yeah. Okay, that's wonderful.
And
absolutely. Now we need to ask like a Rosetta Stone for that.
Yeah, one of my books, that when I talked about that experience, that's one thing I want to make clear is my books are in order. They're a diary, so you can't just jump in, right? You need to start at the beginning and work your way through. But one of them was when I had this experience of those sounds. What I did was I created a sound and took a picture of it, and I did the Om, and you can see the brilliance of what that sound, when made right, what it looks like. But it's individual, because everybody that does it, it'll be slightly different. And so that's what I mean, in the sense of like it's a signature of specific being's language or signature. Yeah.
And speaking of vibrational signature and evolving sound into complex structures and so forth, more and more people become more in tune or become more energy sensitive. So based on your phenomenal experience firsthand with the Pleijarian and many other species, and I want to go back to it in a moment, what would you say that how to connect and make contact in that sense? Can you, there's been a bit of question in the chat room about, can you elaborate a little bit more about sensing, or maybe giving some tip, because there's a lot of people who want to start seed, want to connect more. They want to, open themselves up. So what would you say about that?
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, is that we all have, we like, I use the example of when a person says a prayer, like they're praying to God or whatever, and they say they want this, or they're asking for this, or to bless this person and so on. And, that can start to get complicated, rather than you already have set the intent prior to, or maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, or maybe that last week, you set an intent of what you truly want. And so when you send that prayer, you don't need to say anything, or just acknowledgement. And it's still going to be understood, because you're sending the energy. And a lot of people don't understand every prayer is answered. And, rather, regardless of what you think about, if it's religious or if it's Buddhism or Christian, or it doesn't matter, you're sending it to this energy, right? And they don't see all their prayers answered. Well, the reality is that every answer has been answered. It's just that what you thought you wanted is not what you truly ask for. And so you get what you ask for. And so, where were we going with that? Sensing. And
Sensing, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you sense, what you're doing is, like I said, you take you feel a heat ball in through the skull, out the belly or feet, and again, and you just feel that and really get comfortable in that space. Sometimes it takes people a while just to get to that point, to be able to recognize that feeling moving through your body over and over again. But you need to be able to do that. And when you get to that point, then you bring up a memory while you're still doing this and not losing, the ball sensation. You see that memory and you replay that over in your head over again and again and again, until it becomes real. And you don't know anymore that you're repeating a thought or a memory, that it's actually, it becomes real again. That's when you've opened that gateway, that doorway into the next world, where everything is accessible. If your true intent is to meet a specific alien being or any being, then that's what will come. If it's something more than that, then that's what's going to appear. When people used to ask me to teach them astral travel, I always denied them, because I didn't want them to follow me. I wanted them to find it on themselves, because anytime that somebody guides you, you get attached to their journey or their path rather than your own. So I'd give them the beginning of how to get to that place to begin. And then, like, people have this preconception, I want to find, when I get in the astral, I'm going to find out who killed Kennedy or this and this. But what happens is that once they enter into that realm, it's like there's so much candy in front of you, you don't even think about that sort of thing. But the only way to find that is once you enter across that doorway. But I am sure that, like most of your audience, has already had an embedded intent with aliens and wanting to know the truth. And so if that's true, then that they will find that through the sensing. And it's a simple process. Yeah, it's difficult for some people, right? So they have to practice it.
Aoi always says cultivate, practice, maintain, because you also have to maintain the corresponding energy and the vibration comes with it. It's very important to be in alignment. And would you say also to clear the conflict with the lower mind, because that creates a barrier right there.
Yeah, become brainless and mindful.
Yeah, I like that, because the brain is just the interface. It's the mind Yes. Yeah. I hear that a lot in my practice. People come, my brain is not functioning. And we go like, your brain is fine. It's the mind, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
One of the things that happened when me and Sam Jess switched bodies, we did the body swap, was, she was asking me about being, her and stuff. And then I asked her, but what about me? And she goes, it's exhausting. She goes, you're constantly thinking of something and you're trying to apply it to something. And she goes, it's so hard to be you or to be a human, right? Because they come from the mind,
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, it really is exhausting. I always attempt to be putting some humor because I know human loves it. Thank God for chocolate. It helps
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Zaysan, before we go and continue with more questions, I would like to go back to this extraordinary gathering that you had with many species. You're referring to these very large ships that they were so humongous you can barely see the entire structure.
Mhm.
And I am really happy that you say that because I have mentioned in the past personally seeing planetary size ship, and some people thought I was crazy making things up, but it really is. I mean, they're bigger than planets sometimes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. That's refreshing. So those discs are they always the same? I would say shape. I know it's a cliche here, but just bear with me. Are there do they come in different shape and form, like maybe more triangular, or is it more circular, or is it more what would it be?
My opinion is, from what I've seen, is your imagination. I mean, whatever you can think of, because I've been in the round spherical shapes, and which was kind of really cool too, because they had like what I call tiles. They had geometric shapes all around the outside, and inside we sort of floated, right? And the outside would
Mhm.
spin,
Yeah.
and it's like you could go through a mountain and not disturb the mountain, because as you entered into it, it would change the geometric shape in order to fit that of which was embedded within the earth or the materials. And so it could come and go from those sort of things, and can go through water without making a splash, that sort of thing. So it could change throughout. And then there was another ship that I was in that like not all atmospheres are clear. They're like gooey and things like that. And there's different temperatures. And this was able to adapt to each of those different things. So it had like a raptor look to it, and then like the one we were on, the main ship that we are on is sort of like a fish without the tail. It's just very smooth. But yeah, they're just about as much as you can imagine. As I've seen the shapes, some of them have purpose and some of them really don't. So um, yeah, and the pods are like what people call tic tacs. I love those things because I actually got to fly one, which so I proclaimed myself as an astronaut. But
I love it.
I've gotten to fly one too, and yeah, it has I call PI, which surrounds the ship, which is an actual being that is created that understands you, and it protects you. It's when you see a picture of like a UFO and you see a fuzziness around it, I call it plasma. But what it is that personal intelligence, and it will protect you. And well, you can't harm yourself with these things, and it will do whatever you need it to do. And it kind of reacts off your mind, even though you have physical control. It's kind of silly in a sense because it's really doing the work. Like there's no dashboard or nothing like that, no instruments or anything. And
No.
when I first started learning to fly the pod, they put like a light instrument panel for me, like a joystick and everything. And then at one point when I was on my own, they took it away. I go, what do I do now? And they go, just do the same motions and have the same thoughts. And so the PI reacts to me, knows what I want, and it's done. So anyway, yeah. So there's any shape that you can imagine, they create. Sometimes there's for a specific purpose, and sometimes they're just because they want to.
I am in heaven right now with this conversation because I have seen many of those crafts. I have been in those pods, and I know the one you said, and there's no control. It's really connecting to your thoughts, and they have this circular movement, almost like rings around it, and it moves. And the one I was in was actually completely controlled by the main mothership because it was the same conscious interface, organic interface. And so it's wonderful. And you talk about also that some of the metal, now you're going to touch some of the metal that take shape, or it reminds me a little bit of some of the sample that was retrieved from the Roswell crash in 1947, where you can fold it and it will come back in its original state without a wrinkle or anything like that. Have you been experiencing or seeing some of these material?
Yeah, when they took me out, Hans, I like he reminds me of like a surfer dude and stuff, you know, and we get along really well. We like to play jokes on each other and stuff, and so, but they wanted to. It was important for them to show me how they can manipulate metals, and it's not that it's unique to them. We could do the same thing in space, and there's nothing to know about it really other than to take it to the next level. And that is 3 different types of metal, and I just touch them and they weld together just on their own, being in space, that environment, which is also an interesting point because I'm just now in the digestive mode of learning that there's no dark matter. And what it is that people, it's been like a catch-all. And what Hans was doing was he goes, congratulations, your people have finally figured out that isn't real, right? Not that they're going to help us with that, but he explained to me, he goes, there's matter there, but it is, some of it's weak and some of it's thinner. Some of it has a different consistency or viscosity. Some of it's liquid, and so forth. So, what we see perceived or labeled as dark matter has become a crutch, because if we don't understand it, we just throw it in, oh, it's black matter or dark matter, sort of thing. And it reminds me, and it answers a lot of things too, which they've told me, which is that our physics, our math doesn't apply everywhere in space. It's different. And that's why we can't understand certain aspects of this. And this kind of helps with that. And gravity is one of the most important things in answering so many of the questions that people have about travel and about flight and about this and that. And when you know that there's no dark matter, that it has an actual definition, and there are different types of things that have made up what we call black matter, then you begin to understand more about the gravity and how through space there's different consistency and densities. So the mathematics change. And by knowing that there's going to be a different mathematics, then we can apply and adapt to each of those sort of things. But anyway, that was, oh yeah. And then when they taught me how there was no Big Bang, but how that happens and how the fabric will get weakened. Again, see, here goes the dark matter thing. It's the weakened part of the fabric that collects certain things that are coming by, and how that'll start to combine and collect and heat up and turn into a foam. And I call it a fart instead of a big bang. And what happens is that these celestial bodies, these materials and stuff, expand outward from that. And then that can be proven too by the measurements of the speed of those certain things. So anyways, to me, it's fun stuff. I never was really interested in all that stuff, but when they told me, it's kind of fun now,
Oh, yeah, no, totally, because you're redefining what we think of reality. And it's really so much in sync where we are consciously on a planet where the earth is shifting from and into, and it's more like coming back to a more natural, organic, universal aspect rather than this 3D, 3D biological, physical, condensed reality where we think we know, and then the scientists and physics and maths, I always knew intuitively that it applied to your frame of reference, but it's so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
It really, really is. It's just extraordinary. Like I said, you enter my space. I'm so more natural. It's phenomenal.
I know.
Thank you so much.
So much fun.
Peter, any questions for our guests or comments? Anything you'd like to add?
Some questions actually. So
Yeah, sure.
yes, I know somebody that actually has been saying that dark matter has been just a kind of a dumping place for all the equations they can't figure out.
Yes. Yes.
And he was saying that if you actually mix in plasma, because that's a different form of matter, along with electromagnetism, you can actually add up and actually get the proper calculations for everything, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
So now that we're on that level, what about the speed of light and other of those limits that our 3D mind has created to fit the physics of Earth?
Hmm. Well, it reminds me of a thing that came up that between me and Sam, just because we found out or we discovered that we are a quantum entanglement. The only difference is, I came out with all the looks and all the brains, and she got the rest. But anyways, that's what I tell her. But anyway, Einstein was talking about not being able to send a message through a quantum entanglement because you have the reversal at each end of a entanglement, and that there would be no way to decode it, would be all fractured. And when I asked Hans about this, and he just sort of laughed, and he goes, well, that's kind of like one person have a telephone and the other person trying to hear you from the air, because you have to have something to decode it. And so yes, you can send a message through a quantum entanglement and be received, but you have to have something to decrypt it, right? On both ends. They homerize a lot of stuff for me, and it's kind of great for me because it makes sense. It's like, oh, hello, yeah. If you're going to call somebody on a cell phone, so the other person has to have a cell phone too, right? Sort of thing. But yeah.
Thank you. That was a great question. And you have another question, Peter?
So with all the ships you've experienced and all the different races you've experienced, which one for you has been more instrumental in, let's just say, guiding you or helping you to progress personally?
Well, it's kind of like overwhelming in a sense, because when you talk about ships, you were talking about them as the size of like planets and stuff. Well, in my book, I talk about these I call them Vulcans because they look kind of like Vulcans. Nothing that they have anything to do with the characters Vulcans, but anyways, I label them to give me a reference, right? And so, anyways, they're like 2,000 years advanced from us, and their colonies are spherical. And when we first started to approach it was bigger than the moon. And, and it looked like a rough surface. It wasn't being masked or anything. It's just the nature of things. And the colony that's inside of it, where they produce foods and things like that, people live there. And then they have, it's almost like a resort in certain areas, and they have libraries and all these things. It's a colony. And so you have that. And then, so that's kind of like a ship in a sense, and they keep it in, a pattern around or an orbital area to benefit, the people. And then you have like the Plejarens had these cylinders that were just massive, just huge. And, it had hundreds of thousands of people living in these things, and they can move them through space, and they can direct, which really brought up a lot of thought in my head about where we're going with our space program. But they can move them into where they have simulated like day and night, and they can collect, they're like their food systems where they grow, how they collect the light for energy, which is a whole nother thing too. And but in essence, yeah, anything that you can imagine, they can create and have created. And then there was there's a thing I call flat Earth. I use that term just because it kind of reminded me of it. It's almost like a picture that you may have seen of a space thing where they have a big globe, and then they have like a flat landscape on it. Well, without the globe around it and stuff, the Plejarens have created this thing that I call flat Earth, that where they have they've started to introduce insects and animals to it, and they keep it at a specific space around an orbit, kind of like where Earth has to be in order to collect a certain amount of light and so on and so forth. Well, they do the same thing with this, which is monitored constantly. And over millions of years, it's collecting more and more debris, creating the planet in a sense. And they gave it the initiation, of an iron core and so forth, so that it would start to create these things. But beyond that, I've seen a planet where they took me to a long time ago. Well, it's only been 2 years since I've been with these people, but back in the beginning when they took me to this planet that they showed me that had the possibility of being habitable, and the process that they went through. And when we went there, that was one of my first times I got to fly the pod by myself. And, we would hover, we didn't get out or nothing like that. We were just looking at things. And it was pretty raw, and it was similar to Earth in a lot of ways, but there wasn't a lot of vegetation. Yeah, but there was water and all this. And so they took me back at a later time. And what they explained to me, it was months later, is that when they choose that they need another habitable planet, what they did get together with the realm, and the realm will go through the entire process. They have different levels of consideration of how they're going to recreate this planet. They won't take it to a point that it couldn't have developed on its own. So they're not going to really change anything. They just encourage the specific outcome that naturally would occur on that place. And then they started. And so when we went back, I saw trees that were getting larger, and I saw open areas, and I saw animals and birds and things. And so anyways, that's one of the things they do. So that can be considered a spaceship too, I think.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Right?
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Thank you so much, Zaysan. I know we've been exploring a lot about your, I would say, extra, beyond Earth, extra dimensional experiences. And of course, in honor of your book, can you remind us again, what is the name of your upcoming book?
It's Plejarens Diaries. It's book 8, and it'll be Natural Law.
Okay, so that's number 8, the natural
Yeah.
laws. That'll be amazing.
Yeah, I made sure to number them so that they can be read in order. But they're my notes, and I just keep my notes as I go, and then put them in the book. And I put in what I know at that time, and I may know something different or evolved from what I learned the first book into the second book, and so on and so forth. So I'm just sharing my true experience and what I see and what I feel, in each of these. So it's not a debate or anything, and
No.
people can take it or leave it. But what's happening, I noticed, is I get around 60 emails a day, I think, and they're all positive, and they're telling me these wonderful things about the book and what they've gotten from them. And I don't quite understand it, because I kind of broke all the rules. I just kind of wrote it so it's comfortable for me, and I don't have any heavy editing, or I don't want to spend any money on it. The money goes to the kids, right? And so anyway, some people ask for a deeper description of how to do this or how to do that, and I'm not going to do that, because then I'm teaching them, right? And that'll make it more difficult for them to find the answers that they're looking for. I give them all the foundations and give them all the things that the way I learned something that was presented to me. And that's the way consciousness is working with the contact work that they do with different people here. And so, I'm opening the door. It's up to them to walk through it. And I'm seeing these people just amazingly transform. And it just makes me feel good that whatever this message has been coming through, that people are resonating with it.
It's incredible, because the diaries, now that you are a volume 8, the natural laws, it's very much in sync also of where we are moving as a species on the planet. You think about the natural laws, it really is where we need to go back to and be much more in sync on the universal level. And it can feel a very distinct synchronicity beyond each diary that you published. And we're very grateful for those amazing tools, practices, knowledge, all expand of consciousness, all of the above. And just to remind the human race that you're part of a very, very vast community, very vast. And it's time to reopen ourselves to say, I am part of that community as I am here on the planet. But speaking on the planet, I also want to take a little bit of time to honor deeply the work that you do for the children. You and your team, what you're doing. And that's why I said at the beginning when I introduced you, in my humble way of giving you acknowledgement, is you're like a Superman of modern time. I said that with great respect and honor, of course. as you can feel it. I would like to just touch up about where are you with the work with the children, in the terms of things are shifting, other things are, getting a little bit more elevated. Where are we on that topic with, rescuing and protecting children?
Well, it was focused on mostly in Asia and stuff because a lot of people don't understand that to rescue children here in the States is illegal for a citizen. I would end up going to jail for doing that. And so we have to be very careful about that. The, the laws really prevent rescue of most of the children. For example, like I checked out with different police departments. I'm not ditching on police departments or anything. It's just the way the system is set up. Is that if I would call them, then they take in the information, and if they get the information, because most of them really don't have a true human trafficking department, and then they don't really know what human trafficking is and the different levels of it. They see a massage parlor and they think that's human trafficking, or they see a prostitute who got mad at her pimp and they think that is a trafficking. I mean, so it's so lost in translation. And then say they do really find something, then it goes to the next level. They transfer it to the FBI. Then the FBI's got these long lists where is there requirements for them to look into it. Is there like 20 kids involved, and so on and so forth, and down the line. And then the processes that these I've discovered how they work, all of them, how they like bring these girls in for the Ukraine, put them up in these real estate empty mansions and stuff like that through a real estate agent, then move them. And anyways, long story short, it's an almost impossible thing to stop here in the States. And to be proactive in it, you're going to get in trouble and probably go to prison if you save a kid. So we have to do things on the underground here. Now, since the border's been wide open, there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of kids that are being brought over. And we go to Mexico, we can go there, of course. But I mean, we're outlawed wherever we go. But we work under human law rather than, what they tell us the law is. It's about the children, right? And so what the cartel does is they hand these kids off because it makes it processing easier and to get them through over into the United States. And since then, we've discovered, we went out into the desert. We actually got contracted by some of the people in Mexico to come and collect kids and bring them to them because they were, because you can't move against the cartel, you're going to die. And so anyways, we offered the services to go in. And we was just drive around the desert and pick up kids. I mean, because they would be abandoned once they got to the border or near the border. And so we were picking up these little infants just walking around, had no idea where to go, and were crying and stuff, and then take them back. We also went in and interdicted against the cartel where they were collecting the kids in order to be putting them out and selling them to these different people to cross the border with. We found the rape trees and I can go into a lot more of that, but I won't. But where you could, they identify the processes that are taking place at our border and how it's coming into the United States, how people are going door to door selling these kids once they get across the border. We had one of our Humvees shot up with 50 caliber, just boom, 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 boom. And one of our guys got hit, but luckily it wasn't serious. And so we had to go back and rework that in order for them not to be able to fire so that we could collect kids. So that's one of the focuses that we got here. It's almost impossible now at our border because it's so dangerous. You need an army. And then, but we're still working. I just got back from Thailand for 2 months. We rescued another 300 kids that were destined to die. We did interdictions where a lot of times when the kids get sick in the brothels, instead of giving them medicine, they'll sell them to a doctor who then removes their organs while they're still alive and then sells them direct lines to it, mostly in China. And so we got people that call us and tell us, like, that work there, that they're bringing in some kids. And so that we go and steal the kids back and get them healthy and return them. Also, we work with, there's a lot of government officials, police departments, and gangs like the Triad and the Ukrainians that we work against taking down their brothels. And we specifically work with children, up to about 13, 14, or 15 years old, because you have to pick a target, right? And the adults, I mean, we just can't do that. So we focus on children. And right now we've gotten about 3,000 that were destined to die, so that we've rescued.
I would like to hold sacred space with you and for today, my co-host Peter and everyone watching, to bring ourselves together in really unity, consciousness, oneness, and sending the most profound, purest love and bring Creator's love in all of this. And to you, your team, those who are dedicated to bring such level of going above and beyond and bring as many children back to health, families, dynamic, giving them also, reconnecting with themselves and emotional healing and everything that comes with it. So I really would love today asking everyone worldwide, let's come together for a moment, really holding what Zaysan just said, the dedication and everything with the children and everyone involved. I mean, my heart just went like, I feel like it's a giant universal lotus flower just went open up. And just to bring the love and says, we need to come together and change that paradigm completely. I mean, that needs to completely shift so that you can no longer need to be this bounty hunter and going into all these places around the world. And yet having extraordinary off-planet experience, you bring a teaching to bring us practices, to bring us inspiration, to bring us consciousness. When you work with the Plejarien, knowing, I'm sure they know what you do here on the planet. Do they say anything or share any wisdom or anything about this situation? I'm just curious.
That was what prompted them to help blend my hemispheres in my mind. And that because by hiding it or holding it, even though that, I kept it down, I didn't allow it to affect me in the ways of like PTSD or anything, that they felt that each time I did that, I was harming myself, and that I needed to be able to feel it, but be able to still do what it is that I needed to do. And so they went through a lot, and they put me through torture in a sense in order to heal that within me. And the funny thing is like Sam Jess was sitting here watching it, and she witnessed it. And I was able to, when I was over in Thailand, take her and let her meet some of the kids that we saved. And it was amazing. It was just like, she couldn't get over the joy and the happiness, because the places that we take them, they're healed. They're healed by other ex-slaves. And other people that have been through it. They don't see therapists and they don't see the doctors. They're put back in a place where they're with other children and where they can create friends, and they build relationships with them. They all have little jobs that they do. We show them and teach them. Like, we've had over 300 this year graduate, is what I call it. It's because they're old enough and they were acceptable they have the skills once they leave us in order to provide for themselves. Plus they're helped along that way, and we never let them go. And she saw the ties of these children and how beautiful it was, and to know where they had come from, the abuse, things that you can't even imagine that these kids went through, and how here they are, like, all rebuilt, and now they're even stronger than any of us, and just to watch the beauty. I mean, I handed this one kid a hula hoop, and she had never seen a hula hoop before, and she's kind of looking at it, and then all of a sudden she starts to wheel it around, and she figured it out all right. And so the next thing you know, you see her just walking all around, looking at everybody and waving to them while she's doing her hula hoop. Then we got these other kids that would come up and just start climbing up on top of me. I'd hold the ball, and they would be on my head and everything like a monkey or something, and I'm holding this ball, keeping it away from them. And then other kids would come up, and she just saw the joy that was being created. And after she had seen, the horrors of it. And so, they're with me on this. They give me plenty of energy.
Good. I'm very happy, and I feel it's part of the reason why they make connection with you. Did they give any wisdom or insight as to why this paradigm has to been going on the planet in regards to children?
Well, because that's what we're choosing. That was the thing too, that's come up about how we create our future in a sense. We create our life. You know,
Mm.
whatever our intent is what's being created for us. So if we're always in a bad mood and we always think everybody's out to get us, then they are, you know. But if we see things in another way, in another light, and be accepted of ourselves and our weaknesses and our strengths, then that's what we're creating, you know. And it's absolutely true, but that comes from the mind. It doesn't come from the brain. The brain corrupts all these messages, because when you go to the mind, you only see the pure love, because that's all there is. That's how you access things. Just like natural law, like I said, you know, how that's developed in them from the time they're really tiny, and how their hemispheres become one. Because of that, they're not being programmed. We programmed people. And so when we start to break down that process of programming each other to do certain things for a certain reason, I mean, think about it. All we do is work, right? Not that that's a bad thing, but the work we do isn't like theirs. They work all the time and they love it. And because they follow that whatever's inside them, it drives them to discover new things. And because they haven't been programmed, they were unleashed on it. You know, where we are, well, we got to do this, we got to do that. And it always ends in disaster anyway. And then we have a monetary system. It doesn't help us.
No, and that's a big one that needs to be shifted completely in order to really significantly involve as a species on the planet and moving out of this slave system of monetary exchange that if you don't have the money dollar or coin in your hand, it dictate if you have the right to eat and have a nice place to live, which is ludicrous in my galactic perspective. It's against natural laws.
Yes.
And that ties up with your book coming up again, everybody. Just to make sure, I'm going to show the banner again. The Plejarens Diaries, Volume 8, The Natural Laws, coming up. And Zaysan, remind us again, when is the new book be officially available?
It should be probably within 2 weeks. It's in the editing right now stage. So
Okay.
I've got the cover put together. I just got to finish them doing their thing, and then I'll put it on Amazon. So within 2 weeks.
Okay. So let's say sometime about April 2024. And then, so meanwhile, I invite everyone to look for the other volume and the other diaries, and being able to already immerse yourself to learning the experience and in anticipation of volume 8, which is really exciting. Well, I know that the three of us have been on easily 2 hours, if not more, because there's so much we can explore. And as we go along on the Infinite Star Connection podcast, would you consider coming back again and share more with us?
Oh, absolutely. I just love this stuff.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. Peter, a few words to add, or one more question, comments for our beautiful guest today?
The comments, basically, for me, it's with extreme gratitude. I really appreciate the work you're doing. To help bring the children that are being put in these situations, and to help bring it to light so others can see it and understand it, to help bring more light to it, which will reduce it. It's just exponential. The more light we shine, the less it's going to be. It's
Yes.
part of that, as you were saying, the reality we create. So I'm very grateful for the work you're doing. And it's just make sure everybody understands. It's like the diaries help fund that cause. So when you're buying the books, you're supporting that role. So by all means, get the books, get all 8. Make sure that that we have that you have the funds to do what you need to do. And it's I understand it's a part of a path of some of the people to do this, but it's not pleasant to actually go through. It's a very low vibration energy. And all the power to you for being able to go down there and come back from that and maintain a higher vibration. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very well said, Peter. And I am extremely grateful for the Plejarian to really supporting you and taking you on an extraordinary journey of beyond consciousness, helping you also emotionally, mentally, helping you to, heal and help you to evolve personally, so you can also inspire so many on the planet on so many levels. And like Simon from Glastonbury just said, I'll show the comments, a real life superhero. I was right, Superman of Mother Time. Thank you so much. Well, it's recognition when it is said. And Megan, yes, Peter, well said, because that's exactly it. We all are with you. And I am, again, grateful for my soul brothers and sisters to be with you. And thank you for reminding all of us on the planet that we all definitely part of a huge universal community, as I call it. And this huge gathering you went with multiple species is just to tell you how vast everything is. So keep an open mind, open, expand the the border of your consciousness, expand your heart, and really embrace that. We are very grateful. We're supporting you, and so much love to you, Zaysan. Thank you
Thank
from
you.
the bottom of our hearts.
Bless all of you.
Well, we will see you soon, everyone. The Infinite Star Connection podcast will be back in April. I can tell you we're going to have David Wallace, who will come, ambassador from the Taurus constellation, talking about Kimji and the Scientific Association. We're going to be exploring all kind of amazing, phenomenal topic and conscious energy. We'll announce everything, so stay tuned. Follow us, like our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, give us a thumbs up. We're here to be of service. We're here to serve the light, and we are grateful for you as well. Namaste, everyone. We always stay in your light, no fear. Just light, everyone. Much love. We'll see you soon.
I messed up.